My name is Bruce Perry. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist and neuroscientist, and I've been studying brain development and the stress response for over 30 years.
Dr. Perry, I'm curious if you could just talk a little bit about how trauma is impacted by rhythm and how rhythm can be used to regulate trauma.
You know, one of the most destructive effects of trauma is when stress response systems in the brain become dysregulated. And these systems develop when you're young in utero, and then after you're born, the rhythmic regulatory interactions with your parents and loved ones help further shape these systems in a way that essentially your stress response neurobiology is the rhythm. And they're very, very, very responsive to patterned, repetitive, rhythmic input that's somatosensory. And somato means body, so like movement. So rhythmic movement regulates these networks. And rhythmic sounds also regulate these systems. And so when you put together rhythmic sounds of something that somebody's saying with movement, it's a powerful double input to this dysregulated system that you can use pattern, repetitive, rhythmic activity to restore regulatory balance, and it makes people healthy. It allows the part of your brain involved in learning cognitive concepts to open up. And what that means is if you yoke hip hop to academic lessons, you'll learn those lessons so much faster and more easily. But if you ask somebody to learn the same thing and have them sit at a desk and not move and not present the content in rhythm, it's really hard to learn, even for people that are well regulated. But if you're poorly regulated, it's impossible. So the beauty of hip hop and rhythmic activities that are rhythmic in multiple domains, which hip hop is. It's rhythmic in both motor, it's rhythmic in social domains because you engage the people you're with and you engage them and you re-engage, and it's got rhythm to how you engage the people around you, and then it's rhythmic in the language. And so the combination of a cognitive, a relational, and a sort of regulatory rhythm makes it a very, very powerful tool to use in therapy, but also a very powerful tool to use in teaching. And so the people who've learned how to capture that with kids that have been dysregulated are really giving these kids a gift that they've never had before. It's taking kids that were never able to learn very well, and all of a sudden they realize, I'm not so dumb. I actually can learn this stuff. It's one of those things that it's incredibly intuitive once you understand how the brain works and once you understand the neurobiology of trauma. And a big part of what I think is going to happen in the next 10 years is as people become more trauma-informed, things like hip-hop therapy are not going to be considered fringe, they're going to be considered mainstream. And there's pioneers out there, like you guys, that are leading the way. But it's going to be a while before everybody gets it.
If people wanted to learn a little bit more about how trauma works, how the brain is organized, and how then in the context of what happens when the brain is traumatized, how rhythm then becomes a regulatory tool, where could they go to learn a little bit more about that and your research and your findings?
Well, we have a couple of resources that are on our website, and that website's childtrauma.org. And on that splash page, there's a library section. And so people that are interested in learning more about this, you can go to that library section and cherry pick articles that are, at their own level. Some people may be academics, some people may be teachers, some people are lay folks that don't have any formal training. And we have materials that talk about some of this stuff for everybody. So that's a good starting place. And,
okay.
And of course, obviously your website, you've got resources on your website that are connected to either blogs or other online materials that talk about this.
Absolutely, and our model, it actually is unique in the sense that it combines kind of a traditional lens of group process with then beat production and lyric writing as their own components. Is there anything else that you would say about those activities specifically, how you could see them being, tools, therapeutic interventions?
But as you parse out, the parts of that, each one of them individually has therapeutic effect. The rhythm part, for example, selecting the beats and sort of syncopating the stuff the right way, that actually helps an individual capture the rhythm that's going to be for them most regulated. Not everybody gets regulated by the same beats. And in fact, sometimes some people will feel a little dysregulated with beats that don't sort of match what their internal rhythm is. So it's very, very helpful to find what rhythms are good for you. The other part that's really useful about parsing this out is that when you're writing lyrics, you're storytelling. And one of the most powerful things about human beings is that we're storytelling creatures. And telling your story is a very powerful way of revisiting your pain in a controllable way that ultimately can lead to resilience.